Welcome to the Legends Behind the Craft podcast, where we feature top leaders in the wine and craft beverage industry with your host, Drew Hendricks. Now, let's get started with the show.
Drew Hendricks here. I'm the host of the Legends Behind the Craft podcast, where I talk with leaders in the wine and craft beverage industry. Last week, I talked with Michael Houlihan, founder of Barefoot Wines, and I really want to thank Jeremy from Inspired Insider for connecting us and inviting me to co-host that show. So Michael Houlihan, he recently launched a new venture, Business Audio Theater, where they bring founders' stories and books to life through actors. So actors act out the scenes and depict kind of the seminal events of the founder's story. It's kind of akin to a 1930s radio show. So you may have read the book Barefoot Spirit, and really chronicles the 90s and the 2000s where that wine brand grew. And listening to that book just vividly, I was immediately transported back to my time as a wine buyer back in the early 90s. So if you've read the book and you haven't checked out the audio, you really got to do it. It's reinventing storytelling in the business world. Now, before I introduce today's guests, James Keane and Jamie Robinson from TAPPTEK, a brief sponsor message. Today's episode is sponsored by Barrels Ahead. At Barrels Ahead, we work with you to implement a one-of-a-kind marketing strategy, one that highlights your authenticity, tells your story, and connects you with your ideal customers. In short, we help wineries and craft beverage producers unlock their story to unleash their revenue. Go to barrelsahead.com today to learn more. Now, I'm super excited to talk with James Keane and Jamie Robinson of TAPPTEK. At its core, TAPPTEK is a retail analytics platform that connects brewers, retailers, and consumers through the beer tap. Welcome to the show, James and Jamie.
Thank you. It's great to be on, and great to meet you, Drew.
Yeah, nice to meet you guys too. So tell me a little bit about TAPPTEK for someone that doesn't know anything about it.
Sure.
James, go ahead, James.
Sure. So TAPPTEK is trying to solve an age-old problem, which is to understand consumer behavior and draft beverage consumption at the point of consumption in the on-premise where draft beer is sold. And we do it in a very unique way and a very, very inexpensive and what we believe the only scalable way.
Now, how does that work? So it works with the beer tap.
It does. So what we've developed over the last year with a global technology partner is an IoT data miner, size of an AirPod. I'm actually holding it in my hand right now.
Oh, I see.
It's a custom chipset that can be inserted into a tap handle at the point of manufacture, and it's small enough that it can be inserted in nearly any tap handle, or it can be installed below an existing tap handle using a unique enclosure that we've developed.
Oh.
If we're installing it after the fact, the installation process takes no tools, no training, in about 15 seconds. If you can unscrew a beer tap handle, you can screw our device on and screw the beer tap handle back on. And our custom algorithms very precisely record when a tap handle is installed, when it's removed, when a pour begins, and how long that pour lasts, down to a very, very fine resolution. And it can transmit that data using our proprietary connection technique. It doesn't require any interface with the bar's Wi-Fi or anything of that sort. So it's a very unique way of capturing draft beverage performance, relative draft beverage performance at a scale really unheard of.
Well, that's amazing. Now, tell me, how did that idea come about? I mean, it seems like it's such an elegant solution to a problem that's been around forever.
So my background, Drew, is sports marketing. I've spent about 25 years in sports and entertainment marketing, working with many of the best brands in the world. And my first exposure to the on-premise problems was in the mid-2000s when my agency, I used to have a marketing agency, which I sold to start TAPPTEK. And I was exposed to it through, by virtue of the fact that we were hired by Pilsner Urquell to be the first ever marketing agency. Mm. And I realized back in the mid-2000s, 2004 to 7, that there's really, it's very difficult to stand out in the crowded on-premise environment. And there's a lot of, quote, eye pollution that goes on in a bar. And a lot of consumers really don't even have a clue what they want to drink when they come into a bar. And of course, the technology did not exist back then. So it just stuck in the back of my mind. Fast forward into the mid 2000 teens, and I was hired by a company called Fanatics.com, which was now known as Fanatics. But back when I was working for them, they were not a consumer brand at all. And Fanatics now is, in my opinion, the most powerful company in sports, about an 18 or $20 billion valuation. And Fanatics hired me to go out and put marketing partnerships together with other brands to build their brand and drive revenue. And I was very successful in putting together national partnerships with Dunkin Donuts, Dr. Pepper, and then I closed the deal to be the partner for McDonald's in their 2016 World Cup program. And, we wound up generating over 1 billion impressions. During the time that we worked with them, over 1 billion impressions and many tens of millions of dollars in revenue. And it was when I closed the deal with MillerCoors to position MillerCoors as the official beer of sports fans that I was celebrating drinking a Guinness in an Irish pub in my neighborhood. And I had an epiphany as I stared at the CEO of Taps that were there, that there's been no technology innovation in the beer tap since Prohibition, and all beer taps look differently, but they all function the same. So I embarked on a journey to change that. And fortunately, I met and partnered with James Keane at the end of 2018 and into 2019. And we radically shifted the business into where we are today.
Well, that's amazing. Now, when you were inventing this kind of this interface, this Internet of Things interface there, how does it actually work?
I'll let James take that. And maybe we lost him.
Yeah, no audio there, James.
Yeah, sure. Sorry about that little mute action happening here. I guess let me take a step back.
Yeah.
And say, how do we come to this solution?
Yeah.
In the first place, having created AB InBev's, the Global Brewers Technology Innovation Program, starting in 2009 onward, and also working in digital marketing support roles, working with our analytics teams. And actually, I was one of the 5 or 6 founding partners of AB InBev's venture capital fund called ZX Ventures, and really helped get that off the ground in terms of an early stage technology investment perspective. What I learned is that every solution that attempted to solve this problem relied on expensive, difficult to install, difficult to maintain hardware that frankly disrupted the business. We're talking drilling holes through coolers and keg rooms and cutting beer lines to install flow meters, et cetera. Frankly, I've been behind pitch decks or seen pitches from a wide variety of companies trying to solve for this problem. I've piloted them myself in those various roles at Anheuser-Busch InBev. Personally or through other mechanisms, was an investor in some of these technologies, and frankly, just saw all the ways they can possibly go wrong in scaling. And what
were some of those issues? What were the mistakes they were making?
Sure. I think it's typical of any IoT type initiative. They were costly. Mm-hmm. They were disruptive to the business, difficult and/or expensive to maintain. They required lots of changes to user behavior. We're talking bartenders, bar managers, bar owners, or consumer behavior, God forbid. Mm-hmm. Or maybe they required point of sale integrations. And point of sale integrations have gotten very, very complex over the years because there's been an enormous fragmentation in that market. And by the way, it's human entered data and it's suspect in terms of brand insights. So there are lots of reasons. I'm just naming the a few of them. And one of the principal ones was just connectivity. How do you get the data out of this device? That alone created tremendous difficulties for most of the solutions that I piloted, and we're talking in the hundreds, and or tried to scale in many, many countries and many, many, many markets. And when Jamie came to me with his invention, what I saw was really unique intellectual property, which broadly covers the concept of measuring draft beverage performance at the tap handle and connecting with consumers at the tap handle digitally. But my basically expertise in what worked and what didn't work in the on-premise. And so the insight that we came to was, well, instead of trying to measure every last ounce poured or tenth of an ounce with the precision of a flow meter, if we can get broad relative data, even at a very slightly less precision level, we can do it at a small fraction of the cost. We can do it at a much wider geographic footprint. And we can do it in a way that requires no user behavior changes, no disruption to the business whatsoever. And so, that inspiration is what led to all of the core intellectual property that sits inside the device I'm holding right now. And essentially, what we've done is developed a tiny chipset, a custom chipset that can very reliably measure the things I described earlier using a proprietary set of algorithms that do two things. They not only measure all the things I described very, very reliably and actually much better than we ever anticipated, meaning much more precise than we ever anticipated, but they do it in a way that allows this device to last 3 to 5 years in an active tap handle with zero interactions, no battery changes, no configuration whatsoever. And to get maybe slightly more mechanical about it, going into the project, I was thinking, well, we just measure if it's on or off. Mm-hmm. That's simple enough, right? I mean, I'm a mechanical engineer by background. How difficult could it be? But as it turns out, tap handles and the valves they sit on top have tremendous amounts of mechanical wear and freedom of motion in ways you would not expect. And they actually, act differently based on who's pouring them, how fast they're pouring them, how hard they're pouring them, et cetera. So we've had to work all that out over the last 18 months or so. And we're happy to report that, with more than 80,000 test pours, we can measure relative volume to a precision of about 99.7% in most normal scenarios. So it's way more precise than we ever anticipated.
That's amazing.
And our cost of goods sold, because of the way we've done it, is so low. It's you have to think about it this way. Would you buy a tap handle for $30 today, or would you buy it $30 tomorrow with our technology in it? We can actually do that with what we've developed. And so that's some of the mechanics behind how we're actually accomplishing a task.
I love that you decided to just look at the forest instead of concentrating on those couple trees that are so expensive. Because I do know a little bit about the flow meters and the amount of time it takes to measure that last drop. It just isn't important. And then your solution actually accomplished the goal, even though you weren't even searching for it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I have to say, we're pleasantly surprised. We focused intently on doing one or two things really, really well. And we're pleasantly surprised with the results. We were hoping to get about a 90% precision with measuring pours and pour duration. And we've exceeded that tremendously, to the point where in the running pilots that we have right now, some large, potential scalable partners, we can actually sense reliably keg changes, brand changes, foaming. We can actually predict when a keg is about to kick before it kicking, very, very reliably. And so we're pleasantly surprised, even with the additional insights we didn't expect to get out of the device.
Oh, that's amazing. So, talk to me about a use case for a typical one of your typical customers. First, tell me about who was your ideal customer for using this, and then what would be their first use case that they would start reaching a benefit for.
No, thank you for the question. So I guess maybe I should take just a step back, and I think the data can be valuable, will be valuable to both retailers, distributors, as well as brewers or manufacturers of the product and beyond.
Do you share aggregate data with your customers?
The plan absolutely is, which is very normal in this industry, to share competitive insights. But we will have to apply some logic to that, meaning I'm not going to be sharing one brand's data with another's. It will be aggregated insights, just like some of the large data aggregators today provide, except that we'll be able to do it at scale that we don't believe they'll ever get to. Even companies like Nielsen CGA and other companies that measure the on-premise, when you look at their data sets, from what we can tell in their marketing materials, they maybe cover a very, very small portion of the market, and they extrapolate that. Algorithmically, we think we'll be able to do that in every tap handle. So back to how the data can be used, the customers that we're talking to today, brewers, distributors, and retailers, all have different reasons for wanting the data, but all universally acknowledge it'll be very valuable to them. For example, one of the retail pilots that we recently finished, during the period that we were doing the pilot, TAPPTEK recorded 115 pours reliably, but yet the point of sale only showed 21. Meaning that what was pouring was vastly different than what was actually being rung into point of sale. So you can say, okay, either this is a reporting problem, or the data is being miscategorized brand-wise, or the pours are just not getting into the point of sale. Either way, they were making bad decisions because of that lack of insight. Additionally, there were 4 brands on tap in this location, and 2 of the brands delivered perhaps 5% of the total volume during our very, very busy trial period, which was a reopening weekend a month or 2 ago. So we know immediately for the first retailer we're in their first venue, we can deliver very valuable insights, and at a cost that's a fraction of the value those insights will bring them, either from a bottom line perspective or from a potential top line perspective in terms of optimizing mix. But fast forward to when we're in multiple locations across a chain or competitive locations, we can then begin to bring competitive insights to them. What is performing, when and where? When should a seasonal be on tap? When should it be off tap? When is the innovation in the brand performing or not? Distributors are interested in all those same insights, except waste necessarily isn't a good thing for them, meaning they sell more beer. We hope to make them more efficient in their supply chain, preventing things like hot shots, helping them predict when a keg will go out of stock before it does, so they can plan that more efficiently in their delivery life cycle. And then for the brands, we have all of the above. Brands are interested in all those same insights I described. Except there's one other thing, which is, we know based on the data, the very small number of pilots that we've run, because we're very recently post-product, we can see very clearly that brands don't compete with each other in a venue-by-venue location. They compete with each other in a venue-by-venue, date-time part by date-time part, or occasion-by-occasion basis, meaning that the draft performance in one venue dramatically differs from a lunchtime to a dinner time to a late night. And we can see all that very clearly in our insights. And we can very clearly see that brands are promoting in suboptimal ways or in suboptimal locations. So we know we can bring these insights to the brands very clearly at a massive scale. Imagine tomorrow, a large global brewer decides to outfit their next run of tap handles, or next run of 45,000 tap handles with the TAPPTEK technology at no upfront cost to them, which is something that we can do. Yet be able to get insights from these tap handles. Theoretically, we can give them insights into how their brands are performing and why they're gaining or losing share in a specific retailer. That's something that no one can do today, particularly at the price point that we can accomplish that. And there's one more thing, which is at its core, our connectivity platform is a Bluetooth platform, not the type of Bluetooth that you and I use for our AirPods or our headsets, but an industrial Bluetooth that allows us to connect to devices that have never been paired before. Lets us do this in a very seamless way. That also gives us the possibility to connect with consumers vis-a-vis their smartphones. We can locate consumers theoretically. We have not built this product yet, but it's possible with the hardware we've built within 30 feet of a tap handle with information on how that brand is performing in that particular location, that time of day. So it's a very powerful direct-to-consumer marketing opportunity in the future once we have some scale with our data and insights product. So probably a long answer to your short question, but that's how we think about how we add value to each of the ecosystem partners. And there's more. Every time we talk to a potential customer, they get to us and tell us, well, wait a minute, have you thought about X, Y, or Z? Or if I combine it with the data I have here, I can do this, that, or the other thing. So we're very excited about the value we can bring industry-wide.
Yeah, if I could add a couple of sound bites to that, Drew. We had a conversation with a franchisee of one of America's leading chains, and they own 131 locations. And they account for 800,000 lost pints a year at $4.75 retail. So it's almost a $4 million problem at retail. And if you amortize that out over the whole footprint of close to 2,000 locations, it becomes close to a $50 million retail problem. And our costs for getting smarter about a $50 million problem, our costs are less than 1% of that number to get smarter about loss. And we can tell when after-hour pours are happening. We can tell when too many pours are happening, and certainly the pilot that James cited a few minutes ago. There's a real problem if the POS system is only capturing a quarter or a fifth of the pours that are actually happening. And we're not suggesting that that's all theft or shrink or waste or loss, but it is waste, or it's mislabeled, or it's misentered. And those are things that, add up in importance over time.
Oh, completely. Yeah. Your first guess goes towards like just waste or loss or theft, but it could just be that the person's ringing up the wrong category of beer.
Correct.
That the bar starts to double up on this product A when really product B is the one that's being sold.
Yep. And then to further James's sentiments on the consumer connectivity, really the inspiration, one of the major inspirations of the invention was my experience in sports marketing. And if you think about the NFL and Bud Light spends close to $1 billion a year on the NFL, both on the exact, official sponsorship, and then regional and local team deals, and then activation. It's a very big number. And they don't know what football fans are drinking on game day. And so to take that one step further in Philadelphia, which is where I live, if you look at the Philadelphia Eagles, for instance, they have official partnerships with both Bud Light and Miller Lite, and both those companies pay the Eagles about $2 million a year. And for that, they get pouring rights and they get signage rights in the stadium, and then they get co-branded rights on packaging in the off-premise market. But they don't really have an effective way to activate with the consumer in the on-premise market, which is the most important place to activate. And so we actually could integrate into the Philadelphia Eagles app and begin to send messaging to people who have Eagles apps on their phone about Bud Light or Miller Lite being the official beer of the Eagles as they're about to make a purchase decision. And we think that absolutely is a tremendous game changer in the multi-billion-dollar world of beer marketing.
Yeah, I was wondering how your direct-to-consumer kind of marketing vision would work out. That makes total sense, where you would kind of work with the local app or work with whatever app is already being used within that environment, and then push it out.
We don't intend to create our own consumer-facing app. We intend to integrate in other people's apps.
Smart. No, that's a smart way to go on that.
Thank you.
Right now, so how are you growing this brand right now?
We're thoughtfully picking and evaluating multiple disciplined launch partners. So we're in discussions with leading retailers. We're in discussions with distributors. We're in discussions with brands. And we're really just trying to focus on the right launch partners. And we're having very productive conversations. We're also raising capital right now. So there's a potential for one of these partners to also become an investor and really add a tremendous amount of value to the company while generating value for themselves as well.
Yeah, you'd mentioned in the pre-show, we were talking about kind of trying to find different investors. Where can people find out more about your investment, or if they want to pursue an investment in you?
They could reach James or me on LinkedIn, or my email is jamie@tapptek.com, and James is james@tapptek.com. We're looking to hire somebody named Jim to make it really confusing for people, but we haven't found the right candidate yet.
Well, only hiring Jims and James.
Of course, that's a joke.
Oh, that's funny. So as far as the distributors, when a distributor signs up, they want to do the taps. Do they have to? Then place those taps within the retail establishments. Is the data shared with the retail establishments? I don't understand how that works.
We intend to share the data with retailers,
and the retailers know that they're getting these fancy taps.
If we're under the beer tap, they will certainly know. If we're inside the beer tap, they will notice no difference in the physical appearance of a beer tap, unless there's a cause to. We've tinkered with the idea of putting Bluetooth logos on the beer taps themselves, which unto itself is kind of a big story, because here you have this beautiful piece of very, very valuable real estate. It's the most valuable piece of real estate in the bar. And the idea of adding a Bluetooth beacon logo to the beer taps will ultimately, people will take notice and wonder what the hell's going on. And that's what we want.
That's great. So maybe talk a little bit more about the data that you are gathering, and how much data, how long has this been out in the wild live?
Yeah, so I'll speak to that. We're just post product, so we're only in some partnerships with strategic partners, rather pilots with strategic partners right now. I mean, if you search hard enough, you'll find our devices, but we're not going to tell you where. Mm-hmm. I think you're asking, how much data are we gathering today, or was there another question you were asking, just to make sure I answer you?
It was more just how long has this product been out, and sort of how much data have you started to gather, and kind of your vision for that data.
We finished the hardware development over the course of about 18 months earlier this summer. We finished our software development kits actually around the same time, and actually we're just now developing our front end analytics for the customers. So there isn't like I mentioned, we have lots and lots of test data. We also have a good number of pilot data in a variety of venues running as well. But we're not at a mass scale yet, if that's what you're asking.
No, that makes sense. No, I was just kind of getting curious whether you're starting regionally or whether you're already kind of available nationally. Or That's
a great question. I'd say most of the customers we're talking to are national potential partnerships. Mm-hmm. We're doing that strategically because our data is more valuable. The more brands or variety of brands we're in, and the more geographies we're in. And frankly, those are the types of customers that are ones that understand how data can dramatically improve their business already, are our best potential partners anyway.
That's very good.
Yeah.
So we have a couple conversations going on right now, and the hope is that our rollout, we're looking at mid to end of next year for scaled rollouts. And we think that if we find the right partners, we can hit scale very, very quickly, and begin to, build significant value in a very quick fashion. Just based on a couple of partners, makes us the largest draft beer analytics solution or platform in the world. I should speak to the fact that we also have a bunch of patents. We have an international patent that has issued in Mexico and Brazil, Canada, Australia, Russia, and South Africa. And we're continuing to, prosecute patents in other markets. We have a bunch of other IP that we've developed, and part of the use of capital is to expand our patent portfolio. The other interesting thing is that our IP transcends beer and into any liquid. We're certainly not chasing coffee or soft drinks right now, but down the road, once we have a mature beer business, that's certainly a possibility. And we have talked about licensing our IP to players in the soft drink and coffee space.
I was going to ask you about how you're protecting this innovative technology. So good to hear about patents. What advice would you give someone else that's you're right now in the trenches launching this new technology? You've got the patent, you've invested in that. What other advice would you give a tech company in the supply side of the craft industry as they're trying to build that out?
Similar technology to what we're doing, or any technology?
Not similar, just any sort of technology as you're trying to break into a market with something that's innovative, which is what you guys are doing.
It's a real challenge. It's been a challenge because we're actually inventing a new form of data. So we're actually creating a new market while we're trying to build a product. And that's good and bad. It's certainly exciting, but it's also, it's also much more friction filled because there's nobody out there that has any scaled on-premise data.
Yeah,
it's a challenge. It's not been easy, and thankfully James is very strong in the technology and also in the industry space, having spent almost 10 years at ABI.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's one of those things where if the vendor's not, or if the person's not problem aware, they don't even know they have this problem. They don't know that there's a solution, and you've got a solution. How are you going about spreading the word of just kind of really showing them that there is this problem that needs to be solved?
We're just hunting and gathering right now. Mm-hmm. We're hustling, and from a capital standpoint, the traditional VC route is not as interesting as a strategic route. So we're being really picky. We can afford to operate the business until we have the right partners. There's no fire sale needs of raising capital. We're really doing it methodically and thoughtfully. In my career, I've created multiple corporate partnerships between multiple huge companies. And that's sort of the way we're approaching this now. We're in discussions with different syndicated data companies about partnering. We're in discussions with some distributors about partnering. We're in discussions with retailers. I mean, we're really looking at the entire 3-tier system and trying to figure out the best point of entry. And once we feel that once we hit the right point of entry, we feel like there'll be a tipping point. One of the industry's leading marketing agencies has branded us the new standard in beer taps, and we sort of love that.
Oh yeah, that's I would love to be. That's a great way to be branded. And I like the fact that you're getting out in the market and you're trying to figure out exactly where the sweet spot is, and then you're pivoting in response to the data that you're getting in. I think that's that nimble aspect is. I
think that you answered your own question in terms of what advice you would give to other tech companies. It's certainly being nimble is certainly a prerequisite for any kind of success.
Mm-hmm.
The advice I would give to any new tech companies is try not to be a tech company. Try to be a customer company. Try to really understand what your customers need and why, and how it's going to add value to their business in a way that's meaningful to them, and adapt your product and adapt all of your activities to focus on that and that alone. And the rest will become a lot easier.
Oh, that's great. That's great advice. So guys, as we're approaching the end of this, I always kind of ask what are you guys drinking lately?
That's a good question. I'm a dark beer drinker. So any stouts, any Guinness I love, stouts I love. I'm a big fan of Founder's Porter. Yeah. So I mean, I'm a dark guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had a great bourbon barrel aged stout on Nitro last night. One of our local breweries. Super tasty.
What brand?
Pure Project.
Uh-huh.
They're a local San Diego brewery.
Awesome. James, you want to answer what?
I am a pumpkin ale fan, particularly this time of year.
This is the time.
And I was just telling my wife last night that my beer consumption has gone up dramatically in October. So like 1 or 2 a night, which is more than usual for me. And I always drink brands from small craft brewers because I think just like to support the little guys. I think they have a better sense for what consumer taste profiles are locally, and honestly, the quality sometimes is really, really good.
Which one are your favorite?
I neglected to. I was going to say. I'm a big fan of.
Huge fan of Montauk Brewing Pumpkin Ale.
Oh,
yeah.
Gotta search that out. Well, I don't think we get it on the West Coast, but I'm ever back east.
Yeah, and I'd highly recommend you try the Yard suite of products too.
I will. I get back east every so often here.
Awesome.
Well,
guys, where can people find out more about you?
Yeah, our website is tapptek.com. It's tapptek.com. It's intentionally misleading, just to keep a little cloak of secrecy behind what we're doing. And my email address is jamie@tapptek.com, and James is james@tapptek.com. And we'd love to hear from people.
Yeah, fantastic. So if you guys, anybody listening, local breweries, retailers, or you're looking to get control of your product and flow and figure out what's actually going where, check out TAPPTEK.
Thank you, Drew.
Thank you so much.
It was great. Thank you. It was fun.
Talk to you guys later.
Awesome. Bye. Have a great day.
Thanks for listening to the Legends Behind the Craft podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.